So far, there have been no details, again, provided. Just wait for the budget, we're told. Wait for the budget in October.
Crime has hit a new level here in Canada. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David. Today we got Pierre doing a press conference blasting Mark Carney, blasting Sean Fraser, because since Sean Fraser made his stupid statements about Canada not being the Wild West, where we have seen a home invader end someone or some sort of home invasion event where someone has been pew-pewed at, has been ended, has been injured every single day since Sean Fraser has made those statements. And we have another one here, which is heartbreaking. Let's jump into this. We've got Pierre with this. We are unanimous. All Conservative MPs, all of them, as he says here, every single one of them have signed this letter to stand in solidarity with our Jewish community against the evil of anti-Semitism. So Mark Carney's Liberals, barely 20% or so of them signed their letter, and all Conservatives signed this. This really says a lot. Yeah, Kirk's got the receipts here, only a fraction of the Liberals did. Yeah, it was only a handful of them, 31. 31 of a caucus of, what do they got, 169? It's not very many. Moving ahead, we have something that is unbelievable. Look at this. Premier David Eby agrees with Pierre on temporary foreign worker program needs to be cancelled or reformed. He accuses Ottawa of overseeing an immigration program that fills up our homeless shelters and food banks and takes jobs from young people. We've got David Eby supporting Pierre Poilievre, as Ryan Garrettson says here. Anyone have this on their bingo card? Eby agreeing with Pierre Poilievre. Not once would I ever thought I'd say that or see this happen. David Eby says it should be cancelled or significantly reformed. It's bad when you have this ideological wingnut calling out the Liberal government. That's how bad things have got now. If we go down memory lane, back from 2014, before Justin Trudeau became Prime Minister, what was he saying?
The temporary foreign workers program to become a force that drives down wages across the country and takes advantage of vulnerable people from abroad.
Oh boy, here we go. Once the Liberals get empowered, then they're all for it. Jumping over to Pierre Poilievre's press conference today, we're going to just go to the question and answer period here. He basically ripped Sean Fraser a new one.
That's Mr. Poilievre, David Menzies with Rebel News.
Yes, David.
Mr. Poilievre, literally as we are speaking right now, just a little bit north of this hotel in Vaughan, a funeral is taking place for Abdul Aleem Faruqi. As you know, this is the 46-year-old father who paid the ultimate price in defending his family against home invaders. And yet yesterday, York Regional Police Chief Jim McSween, he held a news conference and he said a couple of things. One is that he wants citizens to comply during a home invasion and wait for police to arrive. He also said, quote, not to take matters into their own hands, end quote. It almost seems as though Chief McSween wants law-abiding citizens to be compliant victims.
What I would say is, as our police service, we'll follow the laws as they're written. The laws change, we'll change with the laws. But as it stands, we know the best defense for most people is to comply. As you've just heard, a number of safety recommendations will allow for those that are victimizing members in the community to leave and not harm anyone.
That's unacceptable. I understand what the police officer is saying here. The Liberal laws are written in a way that we have to allow the home invaders to invade and hope they don't end us. We have to comply and let them walk out the door.
It sometimes can fall on deaf ears when members feel like they have to take matters into their own hands. And the only thing I'd say is, if we are going to rely on our community members to take matters into their own hands to solve this problem, we have all failed our community.
Check out this one here in broad daylight. We've got two guys coming in here. A home invasion in Toronto. So they come up and they start kicking the door in the middle of the day. That's how bad crime is in Canada. I can't play this because YouTube doesn't like that kind of stuff, but
I've been down at Queen's Park. I've provided comments on bail reform. So have many of my colleagues across the GTA. And here we are again talking about it. And it seems like in some cases, right, we have not moved the needle collectively, because this is not just a police issue. Unfortunately, when it becomes our issue, it's too late. So we need to do something about this issue around bail and about keeping those people off the streets that shouldn't be on the street.
So he's basically blasting Mark Carney, but I think these cops, they have to come out and say the Liberal policies are destroying Canada. They have to be more courageous with what they say. I know they don't want to rock the boat or lose their jobs, but people are losing their lives. It has to be more courage in this country. This isn't good enough. They have to say this is Mark Carney and the Liberals' fault.
And of course, last week, in response to your comments about strengthening self-defense laws, the Justice Minister, Sean Fraser, stated on X, quote, "This isn't the Wild West, it's Canada, Canadians deserve real solutions that make us safe, not slogans that inspire fear and chaos for Pierre's political survival, end quote. My question, Mr. Poilievre, is what is your response to the comments made by Chief McSween and Justice Minister Fraser?
Well, let's start with Sean Fraser's comments. He says it's not the Wild West out there. Oh, really? Maybe he should talk to Mr. Faruqi's family, this courageous and heroic man who came to the defense of his children who will be traumatized for the rest of their life by watching their father mercilessly killed by a criminal who should be in the slammer. I hope that those children will, as much as their lives are going to be much more difficult, I hope that as they get older, they understand the true hero that their father was. I'm sure he didn't want to be defending his family. He wanted to be sleeping in bed like the rest of us, but he did it because of the instinct of a father to stand and fight and defend his home and his family from an invader. He shouldn't have had to, but liberal laws turned criminals free on our streets again and again and again. The Liberals have known this for years. Police officers, mayors, community groups have been crying out for an end to the Liberal catch and release criminal justice system. And yet Mark Carney, who's been Prime Minister for 5 months now, decided to go on vacation before ever reversing those laws, and made an even bigger mistake in appointing Sean Fraser as his justice minister, a man who first ruined the immigration system as the immigration minister under Trudeau, and then ruined the housing market as a housing minister. And to give him a third chance to screw something up, Carney has put Sean Fraser in charge of this. It's no wonder crime is raging out of control.
We've got example after example. This is a brand new one from today. We've got... Okay, I gotta blur him out because he's dropping F-bombs. This is a Dollarama guy throwing the pow-pows and the wham-whams at a Dollarama store clerk here. Like, this is ridiculous. This guy needs 5 years in jail to straighten him out. Get this guy a shovel, get him digging some ditches. 5 years of that ought to straighten him out. It just goes on and on. He keeps throwing big haymakers at these two ladies here.
My message is that we want to end the Wild West. Lock up the criminals and throw away the key. 3 strikes, you're out. You 3 violent offenses, you go to jail and you never get out. And I'll add this. People have a right to defend their home. Your home is your castle. Someone comes into your house and threatens your family. You should have the right to take force against them to defend your family. That's what Conservatives propose with the Stand on Guard Act, and that is what we will fight for in this fall session.
Sean Fraser is living in a delusional reality where this stuff isn't happening. It needs to happen at his house before maybe he changes the laws. We're seeing it every day. There's new examples here. This is some rough stuff. I'll warn you, heads up. We got this one here. 11-year-old girl has perished. 4 family members remain in critical condition after someone set their house on fire in Richmond Hill at 3 a.m. So we have an image of the house here. Where's Sean Fraser? He doesn't care that someone was burned alive, an 11-year-old girl last night. He doesn't care. Where's Mark Carney's comments? There are none. Where's Sean Fraser? They don't care. Even if they caught the perpetrator, they'd let them out on bail. We're in a situation where, you know what happened hundreds of years ago? The village would get together and create a hunting party, and they would deal with the situation. I wonder at some point, does that not happen in Canada, where the citizens start dealing with the situation because it's out of control? This is rampant. He doesn't care. He has taxpayer-funded security to watch over his property and loved ones while he sleeps. I don't know if the ministers get security or if it's just Mark Carney. Sean Fraser is hiding. Of course he is. He's a loser. Here's another example. Breaking: husband and wife shot at by a large group of people in a white SUV. As the CCFR says, Canada's not the Wild West though, right, Sean Fraser?
You can see the white Ford Bronco just behind me here. It is parked in this plaza after ramming into this Italian restaurant here. And you can see clearly now that we have direct sunlight on it. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clear bullet holes, potentially 7, all on the driver's side of the vehicle. The front tire has been blown out as well. The windows smashed.
Is this Canadian values?
The front window cracking, just holding on for dear life there. We understand from Peel Police, as well as witnesses who live in the condos just across the street.
This is Canada now, where you've got 7 pew-pew holes. There's 8 pew-pew holes in the side of this vehicle. Meanwhile, we've got Ontario men brandishes pew-pew on the side of road while filming a music video. Okay, so we're not going to play any more of that or show you his pew-pew here, but we're seeing more and more of this South Asian music videos where they have a bunch of pew-pews. Arrest these people, deport them, kick their butts out of the country. To queue up the next one here, Pierre Poilievre is asked about austerity. Well, that comes from Mark Carney speaking in French. Vasi Capello's breaking that down here.
A lot of questions, I'm sure, for the Prime Minister today about the budget and him talking about he wants the Liberal government to rein in their spending, but he's also talking about large-scale investments. What are you going to be watching for today as these meetings continue?
Well, let me put a fine point on it, Anne-Marie, because as you mentioned, the finance minister is there. If I were there and not here, my first question to him would be, what is an austerity budget? Because that is what the Prime Minister in French yesterday said the budget would be, an austerity budget and an investment budget. Picture a conservative a few years ago, let's say if they were in office, saying, hey, Canadians, you're going to get an austerity budget. You can imagine the reaction would be, well, you're going to cut healthcare, you're going to cut education, you're going to cut transfers to provinces. But they have promised at the same time not to do that. So the math, to put it plainly, doesn't add up at this point. You can't have an austerity budget and spend $9 billion on defense and all the transfers to provinces and all of the benefit programs that you have in place. Like, how does that add up? Or does austerity not mean austerity in the traditional sense of the word that we would understand it in a fiscal sense? So far, there have been no details, again, provided. Just wait for the budget, we're told, wait for the budget in October. But if Canadians will be on the receiving end of less program spending, that is something I think a lot of people watching this morning would want to know.
Yeah, so Mark Carney did say in French there'd be an austerity budget, an investment budget. So austerity, a cutting budget, yet investing. It doesn't make sense. It's more of Mark Carney's lingo that he's getting from Liberal HQ trying to confuse people.
Mr. Poilievre, how do you think the government should balance austerity and investment?
I don't accept the premise that government spending is going to be an investment. What Mark Carney has proven is that all of his extra spending has gone to operating costs like bureaucracy. He's boosted the size of the bureaucracy by 6%, the consultants by 37%. He's putting more money into foreign aid that ships our money out of Canada. He's giving more money to corporate welfare. He's wasting money on handouts to phony refugee claims. That's not an investment. That's money down the drain. We need to cut bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, corporate welfare, handouts to phony and fraudulent refugees. We need to bring in a dollar-for-dollar law that requires the government find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending they bring in. That's how single mothers, small businesses, and seniors balance their budgets. So far, we've got from Mark Carney is radically higher spending. He's not only increasing spending over Trudeau's numbers, he's increasing it at an increasing rate. Remember, Justin Trudeau had pledged a deficit of about $42 billion for this fiscal year. Mark Carney, without even introducing a budget, might be as much as 100% above that. So nobody should be talking about Mark Carney's austerity. Everyone should be talking about his hypocrisy. He's doing exactly the opposite of what he said he would do.
Yeah, that's right on the money. The Carney lie tracker I have proves that too. So many things he said he'll do or just things coming out of his mouth. Remember when we had that whole meme where Mark Carney was the Sultan of Arabia? Mark Carney was the first person to climb Everest. Mark Carney was the first person to invent writing. All these memes of him lying because, well, he's a chronic liar.
Prime Minister Carney is promising a budget of investments and austerity. Would you like to see him go further than the target they have set of 15% of savings over 3 years?
So he's not doing either, and he's doing neither investment nor austerity. What he's doing is even more bureaucracy and spending. As I said, it's all a show. There's talks of targets of one day he might find savings somewhere. But since he took office, let's judge him by his actions. He brought in a spending bill in the spring that ballooned the government by 8%, that expanded the bureaucracy by 6%, that expanded spending on consultants by 37%, that boosted foreign aid, handouts to corporations, and more giveaways to phony refugee claims. Mark Carney is even more expensive than Justin Trudeau, something we would have thought unimaginable. So forget what Mark Carney says, forget what letters he sends his other politicians, forget what comments he makes in press conferences. Focus on what he's actually done, which is to make the government more expensive and our deficit twice as big. Conservatives believe in truly slashing the bureaucracy, the consultants, the foreign aid, the handouts to big corporations and phony refugees. Let's bring down the cost of government so we can bring down taxes and increase take-home pay for our people.
Okay, as a follow-up, if you were Prime Minister, how would you approach this spending review? Would you approach including job cuts and not just attrition?
This is interesting. So he's asking, he brought up attrition. Listen to this.
We have too many, after a decade of lavish liberal spending, we have too big a bureaucracy. We need fewer bureaucrats. That means reversing these massive spending increases that Mr. Carney has brought in. Then we need to bring in a hard cap on spending where we find $1 of savings for every new $1 of spending. The government can't just pass the cost on in higher taxes, inflation, and debt. So the answer to your question is yes, we need less bureaucracy and more results.
Wow, yeah. So basically saying he'd cut the public service, not just attrition, which is exactly what we need to do. There's way too much public service costing us way too much money. I like that he's taking this more out in the open approach, not trying to tiptoe around the issues, just calling it straight as he is. That's what's going to make him prime minister here.
Mr. Poilievre, are you concerned about any programs that the government would cut?
The mess we're in today, the reason why we have the worst youth employment numbers in 3 decades, the worst housing and food price inflation, the reason that there are 2 million people lined up at food banks is that the government is too fat. It's very simple. The government is rich and the people are poor. We need to make the people rich by getting the government off their backs. Actually, I'd put it this way. Right now, the government has become a big fat man and the private sector is a skinny man carrying that fat man up an increasingly steep hill. And that skinnier man is about to collapse under the weight of the gargantuan Carney liberal government. It's time to put that government on a diet. And it's time to start worrying about the feeding and care of the hardworking people who are carrying the government on their back.
I'm curious to see how much Mark Carney will actually cut, what he'll cut, because he keeps mentioning this stuff. But Mark Carney is a little swindler. He'll say things to appear one way, but then does another. He's a snake. And on the flip side, we've got Sean Fraser not dealing with any of this crime and chaos in Canada. What does he do? Does Sean Fraser do anything? Or is he just sitting at home playing Sudoku with his kids? You got so many people in the comments here making fun of the whole situation. Does falling asleep count as complying? They didn't comply enough. I saw this in a Western movie once. This isn't the Canada I know anymore.